certainty who they are. Some people are saying that they're paid thugs. Others are saying that they're police dressed in civilian clothes. What's clear is that whatever they're doing has been sanctioned by the police because they're standing right by them. Of course, it was a very Mubarak era tactic to use thugs, pay people essentially to help break up these protests, so to essentially work alongside the police, and that's what people are saying. These people are Baltagiya, they call them in Arabic, or thugs, but it's difficult to get a real confirmation, if you like. One of the big problems we're having right now is that because of the curfew, it's very difficult for us as journalists to move around. So right now, I could have, for example, gone to that mosque, or at least around the mosque, and would be able to tell you what I can see, but we are having to rely on local channels, and local channels all have their skewed versions, skewed angles of what's going on, and that's made it very difficult for us on the ground to really say with certainty what is happening.
And Shireen, of course, there are two narratives to this story. I mean, you were telling us earlier on that there could be the possibility that the protesters inside the mosque released some sort of fire extinguisher to either create an illusion that they're being tear gassed, or to provide some kind of smoke screen so that they couldn't be seen. Just bring us up to date with how we came to get that sort of evidence.
Right, well, of course, we were speaking to protesters inside the mosque on our air, and they were telling us that they were being tear gas. One in particular, one woman that we've been speaking to throughout the course of the night, felt that she saw some sort of smoke, and then she started coughing and saying that it was tear gas. At the same time, we saw some sort of burst. It was looked like a spray of gas. Now, when we looked at those pictures more carefully and stopped and played them slowly, it looked like it was more likely to be a fire extinguisher than tear gas exploding. It certainly doesn't look like that when you fire tear gas. And it also looked like it was coming from the side, the cordon, the side of the mosque, so people inside of the mosque, not the security forces outside the mosque. So it's unclear. We were also then a minute ago looking at the cartridges. Well, again, we couldn't tell if they were spent or not, and of course we can't tell who they belong to. I mean, certainly people who are watching their television screens right now can come to their own conclusions, but some people will say, well, they could have been cartridges that the people inside the mosque themselves have. Others will say, no, it's clear that they have been fired on. It's just it's a battle of the narratives, and we're only seeing, don't forget, we're only seeing one door in this mosque. I think it's the main door, but there could be, of course, there are other windows, there could be other small doors or whatever where things are happening.
Yeah, Shireen, I mean, one of the questions, of course, is why are we seeing the security forces being so insistent on getting inside the mosque right now? I mean, is it a question of the fact that there is a curfew and they therefore regard these protesters as trying to break that curfew, who they've said they'll deal with decisively, or have they said some other criminal activity perhaps may be going on inside?
Officially, from security sources and from when we're speaking to people that we know on the ground, there is no suggestion that there's any sort of criminal activity taking place inside of that mosque. The idea is that this is a large group of people and they're out past curfew time. And this is something that we saw in previous nights as well, when people were inside a mosque this time, or last time I should say, it was in the vicinity of Nasser City, and they were again told to leave by the police because the curfew had hit. And when they didn't, the police eventually went in and evacuated them. It wasn't as serious as we're seeing this evening because people weren't so insistent to stay in, but it was the same scenario. And the police and the security forces here are insistent on maintaining this curfew and making sure that people abide by it. I think they're quite afraid right now to show any sort of leniency or any any sort of weakness on the part of the security forces in dealing with anyone that breaks the curfew. The idea is that we have more protests, more marches to come, and they want to send the message to all of these protesters that any people outside post that 7 p.m. curfew will be dealt with. You won't be allowed. You won't be allowed on the streets simply because you were protesting that day.
All right, Shireen Tatra. Shireen, thank you. We'll continue to stay with you throughout the course of this standoff. Let's bring you up to date now with the latest developments in Egypt. As we've been hearing, armed police have attempted to storm the Al Fatah Mosque near Cairo's Ramses Square. Hundreds of protesters who have barricaded themselves inside the mosque were attacked with tear gas. These are live pictures coming to you from inside the mosque. 95 people have been killed in the same area on Friday. Protesters say they were fired on during a peaceful march to the square. And doctors tell Aljazeera they received bodies of men, women and children with bullet wounds to their heads and chests. Amnesty International and UN human rights officials say security forces have used excessive force. But in an interview with Aljazeera, a government spokesman defended methods used against protesters. He said the international criticism of the interim government is not based on fact. Meanwhile, the Anti-Coup Alliance is urging supporters to come back to the streets on Saturday and begin a week of nationwide rallies. The army is warning it will deal decisively with anybody who breaks the curfew. There have also been street battles outside the Egyptian capital. These are the latest pictures from the city of Suez, where dozens of people were reportedly injured in the fighting. In Alexandria, at least 21 people were killed on Friday. Well, a quick reminder that you can, of course, keep up to date with all the latest developments in Egypt and other news on our website. There it is.